San
huge,
Francisco, yeah.
and there was a bunch of bars in Brooklyn and Staten Island and New Jersey. I mean, I'm sure there's still. I know that there are still stevedores. We even have them here in Seattle, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of them left. I mean, they've all been replaced by cranes and automation and shipping containers.
There is a union still for the men who work the docks, but I don't know what they do. I guess they work the machinery. I remember I went
Well,
down there once to interview they were thinking about a strike at the port of Long Beach. I was sent down there to talk to the union about it. And the head union guy that came out didn't want me to come into the union office. He said he'd talk to me on the sidewalk. And he was just playing with my head. He was the tough union guy. And he wanted to stand on the street in front of the union headquarters and do the interview there like a tough union guy would. And he had a knowing smirk on his face because he knew what he was doing. And he had never seen me before. So he figured I wasn't a seasoned reporter. And it wasn't a big story, but it was a lot of fun to do it that way because letting him have his way, I got the interview, and it was a little bit of a show. But those dock unions traditionally up and down the West Coast, oh man,
they,
what a show! Harry Bridges and the show.
yeah, they used to. I used to help my father out on when he had a trucking business. I used to go with him on a Saturday or something like that, or go with one of his drivers when he had the gas stations. He had the trucking business too, and he had people drive for him. And part of his thing was going down and picking stuff up at the docks in Brooklyn. And I remember that's where I was not first introduced to graft, but certainly certainly got a quick education in it as a young boy of how the world really worked.
Remember, the docks are a trading zone. It's
Yes,
trade,
where money
worldwide
is supposed to be
trade.
traded. If you want to, I remember getting a box at Christmas time from the liquor store. I had to go pick up the box from the liquor store, put it in the car, and go with this guy down to the pier in Brooklyn and take the box and bring it to the dock boss.
The dock boss.
The
Well,
dock boss, who was the union guy down there, who directed the loading and unloading of trucks. So if you were in with the dock boss, you would get down there, you would check in at the shack, you would tell them where your load is, they would bring it out to you quickly, load it on your truck, and you'd be there a half hour, 45 minutes.
if everything
If,
went well.
if everything went well. If you were not friendly with the dock boss, you got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd get your truck loaded. And you can't go in and load it.
Oh no, you
No,
cannot.
no, 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 no. This is like you think Yahtzee has a strong union. These guys are, way over
Yeah,
the top.
yeah, right.
And but if you keep the dock bosses and the loaders happy, I mean, you're always tipping somebody $5 here, $10 here, $20 there. But it's how it's that I'm sure you've seen that movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield when he's in the business class and he tells the business administration teacher that you got no idea how it works. You got to pay this guy, you got to pay that guy. Hey, kidding me? And the guy says, that is not how we run our business in America. He says, yeah, right. And you kind of get that indoctrination into the business world quite quickly into Trump's America, I like to call it, because that's how
Uh,
things work in Trump's America. So, by the way, he is Michael Knight, and he is down in Pasadena, California.
and that's
Home,
New York Vinnie, and
yeah,
he's underneath our sign at Mikey and Vinnie Way from New York, which is his hometown, but he's in Seattle, New York Vinnie. Richichi in Seattle, Washington. I'm in California, and we do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So this must be a wacky Wednesday.
it is a wacky Wednesday. You know how I can tell?
How?
You have two pairs of glasses on your head.
I gotta get super magnification to get. I'm looking up the stevedore poet of San Francisco, who was a man who unloaded boats during the day and then in the evening would write poems, and he became well known. His first name was Eric, and I can't think of his last name. Eric somebody.
Huh.
And he was famous for being a tough guy on the docks, which was a very demanding and in many ways an unrewarding career. And then became a famous poet at the same time. And I searched poet Eric, and that didn't get me what I wanted.
And
I
he
got Eric.
certainly didn't make as much money as a poet as he did as a stevedore, because I have to expect that what went on in New York also went on in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles and New Orleans.
Well, if you
And,
remember a guy named Harry Bridges, he was the head
oh
of the
yeah,
union, and Harry Bridges said, "We're going to shut down the West Coast because you don't intend to pay us a living salary. You don't intend to negotiate a better contract. You think you're in the driver's seat. So here's what we're going to do. From now on, the boats don't get unloaded, and the boats can't come into the bay, and the boats cannot dock at Long Beach, and they cannot dock at San Pedro, or Pedro, and that's the way it's going to be until you guys come to your senses. When you come around and you feel like it, don't call the workers, call me, and we'll see what we can do for you." And Harry Bridges was one of the most. Eric Holder, was that his name? No, that was the Attorney General. Never mind.
yeah. Is Eric Hoffer the person you're looking for?
It is. Thank you so much.
Yes, author of 10 books, awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in February '83. His first book in 1951 was The True Believer. Matter of fact, he has an international literary prize established in his honor. UC Berkeley awards annual literary prize named jointly for Hoffer. And born in the Bronx, of course.
Of course,
Parents were from Germany. And let's see,
he had the concept in his work that there was honor and self-respect in hard labor, and he thought that the idea of a cushy job flew in the face of reality on this planet. Have a difficult job. Have a job that challenges you physically as well as mentally. Have a job where you're performing a service for the better good. You can't get those goods off those boats unless somebody loads them off. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make society continue. We offer to the quickening of the pace of America by bringing in the new products and keeping the docks in active place and earning a living wage and having our own self-respect. And it was an interesting idea that the harder the work, the more suited it is to some people who need the physical part of the job to feel like they belong.
It's interesting that there was I guess there were people who contested Hoffer's authenticity. And one of the lines here by a guy named Tom Bethel revealed doubts about Hoffer's account of his early life. Let's see. Hoffer himself spoke with a pronounced Bavarian accent. He
Yeah.
claimed to have been born and raised in the Bronx, but had no Bronx accent. So I guess that's how you tell if somebody's legitimate or not.
Well, I guess there's some criticism there that could be accurate. However, you can grow up in New York speaking a number of languages that not necessarily are English. English might be your third language. So I don't know what kind of accent
Oh
you would
yeah,
have
I
by
mean,
then.
you could. I mean, listen, I know people that grew up in New York that didn't speak English.
They
That
didn't need it. Yeah.
Italian was spoken in their house, or Yiddish, or any one of a number of immigrant languages. That's the language they spoke, and it wasn't until later in life, especially among. I remember that distinctly among the Hasidic Jews, is that they had kids that didn't speak English; they only spoke Yiddish.
Yeah.
And that was their language. That's what they grew up with. That's what their parents spoke in the house. Their parents hardly ever spoke English.
And part of the tradition was to keep that language alive.
Right. And they were as much New Yorkers as anybody. It's just that they learn, they were, they weren't exposed to outside English language. Their parents didn't want them.
They didn't want them learning English from Jim Jordan. When you come home, I don't want you talking in this house like you're Jim Jordan. None of that.
Well, yeah, you didn't have to be Jewish not to like Jim Jordan. I mean, you could be anybody not like that prick.
I was wondering, can you find anything in our wide, busy world of society that the Republicans want, that they want to conserve and honor, and don't ever forget the blah, blah, blah? What is it that they like? Because they don't like women. They don't want women to reproduce or have the rights of their own bodies. They don't like children. They don't care if they're unsafe in school. They don't like the police anymore because the police are bothering to say, my God, these guns are in our neighborhoods. We're outgunned. This is wrong. We've gone too far. They don't like laws. They like to break the laws. They don't want the institution to be stronger than the will of the individual. They don't like the other side. They have enemies everywhere. But for some reason, they like Vladimir Putin. And they don't like Ukraine, but they like Putin for some reason I can't explain it. They don't like the borders because people from other countries can come into our nation. They don't like our neighbors because they can't be trusted. They don't like the army because they think that the army is too liberal for them. What do they like? Pick one damn thing out of the store. Do they like rye bread, for crying out loud? Yes, but not Jewish rye.
Michael. That's the problem. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. Is they can't. Why the Republican Party doesn't have a platform, because they don't know. They only know what they're against. They don't know what they're for.
And they're against you, I'll bet you.
They're against everything. Everything that doesn't fit into this narrow little pigeonhole of authoritarianism and their thoughts of how America should be, which is a dive back to 1950. That's where they think history should stop, at 1950, where women knew their place, people with dark skin knew their place, men controlled everything because they are so smart, so much smarter than anybody else, and you didn't have a voice if you were handicapped, if you were a minority, if you were different, if you were gay, if you were a woman. You had to have a voice. You had to be a white male, probably in your 40s and 50s.
Dark suit, white shirt. Here's the thing that's interesting about that. In the 1950s, everything that you just said was true. But there was this little crack in the door. There was this group called the Beatniks in the Village, in North Beach, in Venice, California. They weren't powerful. They weren't influential. They wrote books. They didn't do television. They didn't have hit records. They weren't a major part of the economy. The door was cracked just this much by the hipsters and the hepcats and the beats of the time. And that let everybody who was different say, look at these guys. They wear the shades and the beret and the turtleneck. What's this all about? Their poetry is kind of interesting. I think Allen Ginsberg might have had something to say when he said, I've seen the best of my minds destroyed. Best minds of my generation destroyed by the madness around us.
Yeah.
And that let the door open just long enough for guys like Ken Kesey to start writing their books, for the beats to turn into the beat and turn into the hips, for the hippies to make their message not just with poetry, but with music, with new film, with right on the edge of television, as the Smothers Brothers tried to show us. There was a undercurrent of, that's the way you're doing it. We see how you've got the world organized, but there's a thing called nonconformity.
Right.
And we're not going to conform to that. And all it did was say you didn't have to be something, but you could not be something. You didn't have to subscribe to the madness of the Republican GOP. You didn't have to like Ike, okay? There was another world.
Right.
And that door widens ever wider. And now it's wider than the Republicans' door that's open. It's still open. You can join the Republican Party if you want, but their door has, and their appeal has narrowed. Now they're the minority and they're frightened to death of it. And so the reason they're so angry, remember what I always say, angry people are frightened people. So Jim Jordan, for all his brouhaha, for all his nonsense, you know who's really frightened? Lindsey Graham is frightened.
Well, yeah, he's frightened somebody's going to show a picture of him in a garter belt in a closet somewhere. You know, I mean,
and he's not that handsome in his garters. He's just not.
no, I can't imagine that Lindsey Graham is handsome in any shape, manner, or form.
It may be something he wants to do, but it's not a good look.
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, it's almost like they live in fear that if the world changes too much, if the fear that they have is they're going to lose power, they're going to lose control.
And that's
that
a fact.
Look at I don't know. I'm looking the other day when Trump went to New York. By the way, he's going back to New York. I don't think there's going to be the motorcade this time. He's got to go back for a civil rape trial.
Yeah, he wanted that. He wanted to just say, hey, look, I can't go to your trial because I have another one that I have to prepare for.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but what struck me is on the day that the mayor of New York stood up and told Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't mess with our city. Come here, peacefully protest, and then get the hell out. As you look at the spot on the steps of City Hall where all these people were standing, you saw a black mayor, a black woman police commissioner. My God. I mean, that was something that 10 years ago was unthinkable.
Yep.
I mean, a black woman.
Andy Sipowicz, it's a good thing he's a fictional character because he would have died in place.
He would have exploded, as with many of New York's finest. It just, but you look at the commissioner, you go down, you look at the environmental commissioner for the United States. I mean, you see people of color, you see women, you see a gay man in charge of the Department of Transportation. You look at this diverse group of people. Now, I don't know. I can't say for sure that they're running it better or worse than it used to be run. I don't know. But I know that I see more of my neighbors represented there and that to me feels accessible as opposed to 10 guys standing up here who look like they're looking to catch the 5:15 to Darien.
That's where they live. They're not New Yorkers.
Right.
They just work in New
They're
York.
from somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're not, there's a difference. Now, I don't know. Maybe the old sanitation commissioner was better than the one that they got now. Maybe the old police commissioner, although, I don't know, the police commissioners have always had a sketchy
well, they hired Meathead and for your neighborhood, so that gives you some idea who was in charge.
There's always been some kind of sketchiness there. The fire commissioners, all these people that used to have, you had to have one qualification to have that job. You had to be tall and you had to be white.
Yeah.
And now that they've turned those jobs over, at least when I look at that, I get a sense that those people represent much more of the New York City that I grew up in than the New York City that many of the people in Staten Island and many of the people in certain parts of Brooklyn and Queens are long for again and wish was back, but it's not coming back.
Well, here I am in Los Angeles. We have a female black mayor. First time ever. Not first time.
Sid Marty must be spinning in his grave.
Not first. Well, you already had to put up with other black mayors as well, so but they were male, and that made more sense. Plus, they were ex-cops, and the tradition of that is a long time standard for who's smart enough to be the mayor of Los Angeles, an ex-cop, of course.
Yeah.
And we're past the fact that we know you from being the cop commissioner. It means that you can become the mayor. It's a job that's just, well, it's too big. I don't know how many cities we could make out of Los Angeles before we got them down to a size where they were manageable. But I would think 10 to 15 cities with separate mayors and separate police and separate taxing and separate efforts. But who's going to be the city that gets our Skid Row with this monstrous, huge homeless population? And the answer to that question is we have one mayor with one huge city to run, and the job of fixing the homeless thing is going to be we're going to have to juggle it to get it right, because the empty hotel thing worked for a while, but who was going to run the hotels and who was going to finance it and it all bogged down in money and red tape.
Yeah.
So we haven't figured it out yet, but it's on the burner, the first burner for this mayor, because if a black female mayor can't begin to address the problem of homelessness, who do you think is going to? Who's going to be more compassionate? And for all the money and administration that it's going to take, there's going to have to be a load of compassion that goes with it, because you're dealing with people who have lost their tether to society and are just on the street.
You're dealing with people who, whether they're mentally ill or not mentally ill, and I'm going to say that a certain section, like our society, is a certain bunch of people that are mentally ill. Maybe they live in houses and they can pay their rent and they can function in a society, but there's that underlying mental illness that's going on for whatever reason. They feel paranoid. They feel disenfranchised by society. There's something that they feel inside, or maybe they don't feel anything.
And I think that they mistrust others. Their experience with other humans has not been good, and they want to be on their own, to be alone, to be quiet, to be separate.
Mental illness, Michael, is something that it's easy to feel alone.
Yeah.
It's, there's two things that happen when you have a problem. Number one, you are attached to a stigma. There's a stigma about going to somebody and saying, I don't feel right. Well, what's wrong with you? Is your stomach hurting? Do your legs hurt? Do your knees hurt? Do you have a cramp? Do you have a pain? No, I don't. I feel like everybody's against me.
Yeah.
Or I feel like I don't want to get out of it. There's no pill that they can just give you to fix that.
No.
And if you try to get help for that, there's such a there's such a resistance to it that they'll get people. One of the funniest things I ever have seen is I went to after I got out of the coma and everything, I was really depressed. I mean, I was really like kind of very, very, very depressed. And I remember going, calling up and saying, "Hey, I need to see somebody. I need some kind of help. I can't get through this by myself." And I went to this office that the medical plan sent me to talk to somebody. And I remember they had this guy was there, and the guy couldn't sit still.
No.
And the security guard that was there kept telling the guy, "You have to sit still." And the guy couldn't. I mean, it was plain to me that there was something not right about this guy. That something was his head wasn't in the same place that everybody else's was, sitting in that row of chairs. And I just remember feeling sorry for the guy and wanting to punch the security guard in the mouth.
Where did the security guard think he was working?
I don't know, maybe in elementary school, but he felt that dealing with this person as a child, as a person who had no idea what they were doing, was the best course of action. And how many times can you tell somebody who is hyper, who is to sit still, to sit in that chair? But that's the conditions that you run into when you go to many of these places. And if you don't have money to um, to see somebody, it's even worse because then you have 10 people who can't sit in the chair and 5 security guards telling them all to sit down and be still. Or they're going to clock them over the head, or they're going to call the cops. Then the cops come, and what are they going to do? They're going to do one of two things. They're either going to shoot him or arrest him because now he's being disorderly. How do you get past that? What incentive is there? What would make a person, except if they have an extreme drive to get better?
But that drive would probably tell them, never go back to this place.
Right,
I want
right.
to be better, so I'm never going there again.
I'll go out. I'll take my chances out on the street where nobody is telling me to sit in a chair and keep quiet and not move.
Or what's the point with normal, healthy children to tell them to sit down and be quiet? You can't tell a child to sit down and be quiet.
And
That's a ridiculous order.
I think what we're starting to see now, and I don't have any empirical research to link one to the other, but I think some of those people who try to go get help don't get the help, and they go back out into society. And just because they didn't get the help doesn't mean that they're not mad anymore. And they go out and they get madder and madder until one day they decide, well, I'm going to go get a gun.
You know, the interesting thing about this shooting in Louisville is I thought the guy at the bank who did the shooting had been fired. I guess he hadn't been fired. I don't know how we got that wrong, but that's the type of detail that can be wrong in these shooting stories, especially in the shooting stories when you're gathering information quickly. So why did he do it? Why did he go back to his place of business? And they can't come up with an idea. They said he was a little depressed. Well, everybody's a little depressed.
Yeah.
He was a little depressed and he bought a gun. So you knew he was depressed. Did you know he bought the gun? Did you know that he was in trouble at work? What was they're really having a time coming to grips with his motive on this one. And I thought it was a simple one. I thought it was a simple story of this guy got laid off in a cost-cutting move at the bank and took his revenge at his place of business.
Decided to come back and take it out on.
But apparently I'm wrong about that. So that means people with underlying mental problems in a workplace with a good job, with enough money to get themselves a gun when they need it, they wear their suit to work every day and no one suspects that they're right on the edge of what? Of murder, of revenge,
Somebody has told them to sit down and shut up one time too many. And it's pushed them over the edge. And their chances are, and again, we're not psychiatrists, we're just kind of talking about it. But it gets to a point where it pushes them over the edge. It pushes them into a place that they don't want to be.
And invariably, Vinnie, these people wind up dead as a result of their acting out. They go back to their workplace, they go to their school, they go to a mall, they go somewhere. Invariably, they end up dead as a result of their work and their decision. But their idea was not to sit home quietly in their own bedroom and commit suicide with that gun. There's this element of, I'm going to show them. They're going to be afraid of me today. I'm going to take a few with me.
People with me. I'm going to get revenge on whoever has done this to me. And we have a society where revenge is glorified. Crap, we make, I mean, Hollywood, they make all these movies every year where they put guns in people's hands and they send them out to get revenge.
Charles Bronson revenge.
Yeah. So, I mean, Death Wish. I mean, that's not the first one or the only one, but that's the idea. Dirty Harry, revenge. The guy with the bigger gun eventually wins.
Make my day.
People buy that. They love that. And now you have it in video games, and you have it in all parts of society where it's accessible to young minds who maybe don't have the parental supervision or the or the intelligence or the ability to discern right from wrong, revenge from being peaceful about something, realizing that you don't have to make people get it in the end, that the world, the universe takes care of that.
And also, if you're on the edge emotionally, you can watch an idiot like Donald Trump say that he's never going to apologize to anybody for anything he's ever said, for anything he's ever done. Come and get me. Come and get me, punk. I'll beat you in court. I'll beat you in the street. My followers will take care of you. You beat him up. I'll pay the legal bills. Follow me. What we're going to do is make America great again. And to make America great again, a lot of people are going to be pissed. A lot of people are going to have to clear the streets. You homeless people, you black people, you brown people, the Asian folks, the people that don't love me anymore, the Jews that have to go. You all have to go. So we can have plenty of room here in America for Donald Trump type white people to live peacefully among ourselves, just like we always would have. And we would have done it already, but except for all you people, all you liberals and all you people of different races.
Right. We're gonna get the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world, and those are gonna be our heroes. The guy has no business being where he was, but decided that he'd get his assault rifle and go down to outside of Chicago there to Kenosha and see what trouble he could stir up. Had no reason to be there. He had to drive 500 miles to get there.
He would have, and he surrendered to the cops, and they drove right by him, going, "Well, you're doing a great job. We'll catch up with you later."
There's a million of those out here.
White guy with a gun. Keep moving.
But he wanted to exact his revenge for whatever perceived problem he had, and I understand it. I mean, listen. I grew up in a society, but a subset of society with Italians that revenge was a thing. It was something you lived with every day. This guy got shot, and so who's going to shoot him? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And I'm here to tell you that it lessens your quality of life. Thinking about how you're going to get back at people all the time. The only person that suffers from that really is you. Because you spend, instead of doing things that are beautiful and creative and constructive, you spend it becomes an obsession. You spend your whole life trying to figure out, how do I bring somebody down? How do I hurt somebody?
You can hurt them by saying that they were financed by George Soros, apparently. George Soros is paying the way for a lot of people, haven't you noticed? I don't know where he got his money, but he's got enough of it to keep all sorts of people in business.
My door is open. If George Soros wants to come by and drop $1 million on me, God bless you, pal.
George, that's fine for Vinnie, but I'm going to need another $1 million for me, and I would like it in 20s and 50s, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and non-consecutive serial numbers if you can do that.
Yeah, let's not be silly about it. They shouldn't be consecutive. I mean, they
Yeah,
all have different numbers. Let's not get them back to back. I want some of
yeah,
these and some of those.
yeah. But that's it. Is we live in a society now where all you have to do is you have to have the cult leader point his finger at somebody and say that person is bad. That person is this. That person is that. And the weak-minded will follow him. And what's even worse about it is I was watching a little bit of, and I couldn't get through the whole thing. I wanted to watch it, but the little speech that Trump gave the night he went back to Mar-a-Lago. So here's a guy who's telling everybody we need to make America great again, and he's getting people to cheer a felon, a felon, or an alleged felon, and he's getting people to boo the guy who is upholding the law. The guy who is saying, I believe, and so does a jury of 12 people, believe there's enough here to think that you committed a crime. There's enough here to think that we need to take this in front of a jury and a judge and find out if you committed a crime.
And the grand jury in Georgia did the same thing. They
And
said, we watched it. We watched all the stuff. You showed us all your evidence. Yeah, you can indict this guy.
yeah, and yet this crowd of allegedly well-heeled rich, because you have to be rich to get into Mar-a-Lago. They don't grab a couple of homeless people off the streets to fill seats like they do at the Academy Awards.
We got rubber chicken, but you got to come in and pay the freight. Get in here
Right.
now.
You got to come if you want to sit there with Donald Trump and his bastard children. You have to sit there and pay to
Can
do
I
that.
sit? Can I sit next to Uday if I come up with an extra grand?
Sure, yeah. For $2,000, you can sit right between Uday and Kusei and get your picture taken.
I'm not so hot about Kusei. He gives me the creeps, but I know he means well. He's making America great again.
Not even John Gotti sold T-shirts with a picture of him with a mugshot on it. Even though the
No,
mugshot was fake and Gotti's was real.
and Gotti loved his suits. Besides, he wasn't going to be seen looking like a schlemiel.
But yet, in this world that Trump presents and that all of these cult people love, this is the world they live in. They live in a world where it's like a bizarro world. Superman would not be a hero in this world.
No, he'd be the enemy.
Superman would be a schmuck that listens to the government. And you should never listen to the government because they're always out to get you unless they're giving you a tax break or a farm allowance or
Which
a small business loan.
It leads you to ask the question, what is the American way? What would Superman believe in? What do the people who hate Superman believe in? They have their own American way that they're fascinated with.
Well, we did a week of shows on that, Truth, Justice, and the
That's
American Way, and
right.
we uncovered some pretty ugly truths about it.
Well, the American way includes a lot of destruction, some of it official, some of it societal. Ask the blacks of the 1950s what the American way was like for them. Ask the Chicanos of Southern California in the 40s and 50s what life was like for them. Ask the gays of the 50s what life was like for them. Ask the field workers in California what life was like for them. Ask anybody who was on the edges of society what's like. Ask the blacklisted writers of Hollywood. The writers, by the way, in Hollywood are getting ready to strike. It's going to change programming dramatically. And they're doing it because the new expression of media on several platforms is not paying them the same as it used to.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
we have a new realm of income, but we're not going to include you in on that. So that's just for us, the producers.
Well, we've also normalized stealing.
Yeah.
If you write an article, okay, when I do drive time, a week after I put drive time up, I can guarantee you that it will be on somebody's website who is not compensating me for it. I can guarantee
They're
you,
sharing your content.
yeah, that that it will be out there on somebody's website, rewritten by somebody, used by somebody. The pictures that I've taken will be reused by somebody in their attempt to have a website or have a magazine of some kind, an attempt to get clicks, and you don't get anything for it, and it costs you more to try to sue them or to try to get something from them than it does if you just let it go and you say, listen, I wrote it, I got what I could for writing it at that time, and as far as residuals, we're all now 1950s rock and rollers. You do it, or you do it.
And the guy at the Brill Building has got a new house in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I'll be damned if it didn't coincide with your hit record.
Yeah, it's amazing. Kid, we put your name in every jukebox in the Bronx.
Your name is there. You're going to get the clicks. You're going to get the recognition. Maybe you could even do a show in Brooklyn. We got an Alan Freed show coming up. By the way, the kickback to me comes first, and then we're going to pay your band next week.
And you see it, and it's so normalized that when you look in the let's say the All Access, which is the industry, one of the last remaining industry newspapers, how many ads do you see for employment ads that say, well, we can't pay you anything, but we'll put your name up on our website?
Yeah.
Like you're giving me something.
They really believe that they're giving you value for your work. Work, by the way, that they can't do. Here's a person putting up a national online radio station, and they have no talent to do it themselves. Can't pick the music, can't do the jocks, can't do the editing, can't do the posting. What can you do? I can offer you recognition on our website for the work that you do. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what a manager does. That's what a wise manager can do. Get you to work for nothing.
And if down the line we get 20 million clicks on your article, we'll write you a check for $50.
But not now. That'll be later.
But not now. Yeah. Not up front. You're not going to get paid for the work that you do. You'll get paid for the popularity of what your work might be. And by the way, we own the rights to that work.
We own it now.
So if you, by some chance, hit on something that is picked up nationwide, you will not get the compensation for it. We own the rights to it.
Because remember, all you did was write it. So I don't see what you're worried about.
Right. And we will own the rights in perpetuity, forever and ever.
Throughout the universe.
Your writing is really our writing. Your efforts is our effort. You could either choose not to do it, but good luck on getting your stuff out there. And although I found out that you have just as good of a chance of getting your stuff out there without ever doing a deal like that.
Remember Yahoo and Bloomberg and AOL and and MSNBC, and everybody was going to do news. They were going to have their own news website. Everybody was going to come to that website to see the breaking news. And then they said, wait a minute, we need reporters to do news? I thought you just got it off the wire. Yeah, but that's written by a reporter. Well, we're not having any of that. No. If there's a cost, we thought news was free. I'm sorry. We got it wrong. I thought that you could just get news and put it on the site and people would go there to read it. No, someone has to write that. Well, and why write it? Because the reporter, wait a minute, breaks. No, we're not doing any of that. Now back to my project to do television without cameras. You're going to love it. The screen's a little dark. But it's so much cheaper.
You have people that are putting channels on the air on cable that their whole thing is taking down newscasts from other cities and putting them on.
Yeah.
So they take the 5 o'clock news from San Francisco, and then the 5:30 from Denver, and then the 6 o'clock from Los Angeles. And they don't have to have a lot. All they have to do is have somebody who knows how to sell.
Yeah, it's not about there is a strange dividing line in the world of online content because somebody has to come up with that content, and very few of those websites are financially strong enough to have their own staff to maintain their own content. And the ones that do, like the LA Times, for instance, you can see the headline, but you can't read the story unless you pay. The New York Times, the paper of record. You can see the headline, you can see the first paragraph, but you cannot use that material.
I got to shell over my $8 a month, or else I don't get it.
And you can't even read that article without paying. I checked Variety this morning. Variety is still free on the front page, but there's a lot of content on Variety that you have to pay to read. By the way, the lead story in Variety today is Motley Crue in the soup. Their lead guitarist says he's been bullied and underpaid and kept on the edge of the group for too long, and he wants full membership. The manager says he's crying about this. He's ruining our image. And the big image picture of Motley Crue on the front page, all smiling. And the idea is it's been an unhappy ship for a long time because the team, they've turned into a bully machine against their lead guitarist. He's still in the band. They can't go anywhere without him. He still plays lead guitar, but they berate him all the time. They're not nice to him, and he wants a financial settlement to even the score.
Now, is it something similar going on? I read this maybe last week, and you read it on social media, so you have to be wary of it, or wary, I should say. Is there something similar going on with Journey and their lead vocalist that they brought in to replace Steve Perry?
Then they probably never made him a full member.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that. I mean, I know I've seen this, but there's a guy they brought in years ago. I forget his name.
He was from the Philippines.
Yeah, from the Philippines. He was a karaoke guy from the Philippines, and he did Journey so well.
And he sounded just like Steve Perry, which is not easy.
We need Steve Perry. We got this guy, and we can pay him half.
Exactly.
But I guess there's been a rift between Journey and the karaoke guy, and we'll call him Rocky Karaoke for lack of a better name at the moment. But Rocky is not getting along, and they wrote this article. Somebody wrote this article, might have been Rolling Stone or something, about how Neil Schon and who was the other who's the drummer?
Steve Smith.
I think Steve's. Yeah, I think that was it. They had to go out on a date with this guy,
Ross Valerie, and
even though they were involved in a legal battle, they still
Jonathan Cain.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, that they had to go out and perform with this guy, even though they were involved in this massive legal battle with him. That they still were contracted for these dates, and they still wanted to make the money because they get, they're still drawing. I don't know, 20,000 people to a show. They don't want to give that up, but like the guy has to have his own separate dressing room, like on the other side of the arena. I mean, it's comical almost when you read about it.
So they only meet on stage.
Yeah. So I guess they can't even do sound checks together. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's how it was for the Beatles in the last days.
Well, except their problems were in the studio. I'll sit over here with Yoko. You guys bring me a microphone when you want me to sing.
Oh, what did I see the other day? I saw. I have to go back on YouTube and look at my history and see what this was. But I saw Yoko singing something. Well, I saw
I know. Vocalizing.
emitting sounds from her mouth.
I'll say one thing. She was uncompromising. She never said, maybe I should take a lesson here somewhere along the line, see if I can sing Far, Far Away.
Yeah, no, this is somebody who had a lot of love for themselves.
Yeah. Undoubted confidence.
High esteem.
Hard to
she,
believe, but yes.
she should be up in Marin County at the Est Farm teaching people something, because she definitely had a high opinion of her vocal qualities. But
What song
boy,
was
I
she
just
singing?
saw this.
Was it her own?
No, she was singing. It was somebody's. She was at this art museum, and she was doing her interpretation of somebody's song, and it was like a popular song, but you would have never known it
No.
by by listening to Yoko.
I'd like to hear her do My Way.
Oh my God! It truly was. And listen, I you know, I like John Lennon. I mean, he was a flawed guy, but he gave the world some great music. But boy, did anybody do more to break up the Beatles than Yoko Ono?
No, and if you saw the revised edition of the Beatles Get Back, you saw that she didn't really interact. I mean, she was like she and John were separate entities, except John, of course, was surrounded by the people he grew up with, and so they were constantly interacting in their Liverpool way, in their Beatle way. And but what I did notice about that movie, especially because it's the most consistent up close look at their working relationship that you'll ever see, was that the music was pouring out of Paul McCartney,
Yeah.
and John was just there for the party. And it's fascinating that he never kicked in and said, "I'm going to contribute to this too." It was his mind was somewhere else.
And poor George Harrison, he had crap coming out of him all over the place, and nobody would listen to him.
He got his way though.
Well, yeah, he wound up probably you could make a pretty good case that he was the most prolific of all of them. I mean, McCartney went pop, Lennon
Right.
went strange, but George laid down some really, interesting and great music and worked with some incredible people.
And his All Things Must Pass 3 CD release is just among the most amazing albums that anyone ever recorded.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, again, you go back and you look at what he accomplished, and it was far more than any, than I think any of the other. I mean, I guess you could make a case for McCartney and what he was able to do, but again, he went into the pop realm where George pretty much stayed true to what he was about.
Imagine having those songs and that talent and still being in a group where you had to have permission from the other two guys before you even got a record on the. Well, do I get a song on the album?
And really almost behind Ringo.
Yeah, we're thinking of it. Ringo always gets a song. You don't always get one, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it had to at some point, be pretty disheartening to
And the funny thing was, his songs on the albums, the ones that he did get on, were always great.
yeah, except for Wonderwall music.
I bought that. I had it.
I
I know
bought
what
it
you
too,
mean.
yeah. You know, in those days, if anything came out from a Beatle, you bought it.
He was just playing on his synthesizer. He was fiddling.
Yeah. You know, you just, if anything came out by a Beatle, you ran to the store that Tuesday because that's when the records came out, and you bought it. You lined up for it.
And I don't know. I guess that was music for some from some video project. I mean, it probably made sense in another context, but to sit home and listen to Wonderwall was not always exactly what you needed. You had to be in just the right mood.
It did not play well on a road trip.
No. If you're having trouble staying awake, that's not this tune to put on.
It was not. I don't know if I ever remember hearing a cut on the radio.
No, I never did.
Yeah, I don't think. I think the only way you heard that album was you bought it.
And I don't know how many people. There was one copy at the student store at the University of Miami where I bought it. I got it. I can't begin to think how many other people on that campus, just the campus, had that same record, but not many.
It was, well, you know, usually people, I mean, I remember when it came out in 67, right? I think it came out after Sergeant Pepper's and before Magical Mystery Tour.
No, I think it didn't come out until Apple was formed because it was on the subsidiary Zapple Records.
Right. Okay. So it was after Magical Mystery Tour then. But we were all dying for anything Beatles. I mean, if the Beatles farted, we would buy it on an EP.
And listen for the secret messages.
Yeah. Well, that's when you bought the records and you played them backwards to see where Paul was. And I remember, man, people lined up at Record Spectacular to buy Wonderwall music, and we got a box of them, which I think was 25 in the day, and it was gone.
See ya.
Boom. It was like the next day, nobody else was lined up. Boom.
Should I get another box? Hold on, Vinnie. Let's just
hang on.
Hold on.
Call the warehouse. Tell them not to order too many of these things. Something tells me we're going to be taking them back. You know when you know they're bad is when
returns.
You take it home. You bring it back the next day. Put it back in the repoly it and put it back in the thing.
I'm going to sell this record 3 or 4 times.
The poly machine was buzzing that day, man. Whoa.
And I never knew another record that was ever released on Zapple.
I don't remember. I mean, who else? You know, would have been Mary Hopkin, Badfinger.
No, they were all Apple.
And there was somebody else that was on that too.
Doris Troy, Lomax, Jackie
Neil
Lomax.
Jackie Lomax. Yeah, Neil Lomax was the quarterback. That's right. That's who I was trying to think of. Anyway, this Yoko Ono cut is from summer 2010 at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And it's a voice piece for soprano and wish tree.
Okay.
So you could.
She fancies herself as a soprano, I guess.
Well, you know, Tony Soprano would have never had this woman anywhere around. I'm just saying. Let me see if I can just run a little piece of it through here.
We got a regular Ima Sumac over here.
Oh my God!
Oh, I hear her. That's her. She got to go on there for a while. Almost had a rhythm. Wow, 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 whoa.
And the funniest thing is I don't think there's anybody over like 30 who's watching her. And I don't think anybody really knows what the hell is going on.
Is she the soprano, you think? Because there could be a soprano hidden somewhere on the stage.
I'm looking, and it's not even really they didn't even put her on a stage. She's just standing in front of this wall with a mic and looking like she's in either pain or orgasm.
Same thing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry, Yoko, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Here we are, we're 50 years down the road, and your singing has, at least I like to think that many people, I listen to Miami Steve. His
Yeah.
singing has gotten better. I listen to Bruce Springsteen. His singing has gotten better. I listened to many people from the day that I didn't think could really sing as much as act out the songs,
Right.
and many of their singing has gotten better. She's regressed. She's
I
gone
feel
back, gone into a tribal
yeah.
scream.
Chant. Howl. There's one thing I do feel guilty about criticizing her because she was a guest on my show and on the City, and it was a great interview. And it was about John Lennon's cartoons being for sale in San Francisco, and she was there for the grand opening at a bookstore, and they were going to be signed in one lithographs with a limited number of runs. She couldn't have been nicer. She was a wonderful guest, but she did not sing.
Yeah, she seems to be. I mean, from all accounts I've ever heard of her, she seems to be a nice person. I mean, I've heard, obviously you've heard the bull crap that, that people like to say, but I've never heard anybody that I know that has met her personally, say she had an attitude or, anything but good things to say about her, until.
That was a good one. That was a good one, Yoko. That was like a gargle at the end.
I'm sad isn't around. Who's the guy that used to do the oh man, they would do he would do a record. Was it Dickie something? Like it's folks, flying saucers have attacked New York City, and then they put a line of a song in there.
I remember it. I bought those records.
Yeah, was it?
They were on Luniverse Records.
Yeah, Dickie something or I forget, but they'd write a story and then they would use like a line from a song in the story with the guy actually the band who was doing it singing the song.
The one I remember was the reporter is on the scene doing something, and the flying saucer lands, and the space people speak to the crowd with lines from rock and roll songs.
Yeah. What was the name of that guy?
There was two of them. It was somebody in Goodman.
Yeah, Dickie Goodman, I think it was, wasn't it? Or anyway, they were yeah, Dickie Goodman. American music and record producer born in Brooklyn, New York, best known for inventing and using the technique of the break-in, an early precursor to sampling that used brief clips of popular records and songs to answer comedic questions posed by voice actors on his novelty.
Buchanan and Goodman. There you go.
Yeah, I think one of them was Space Invaders or Space Invasion or something like that. But
and it was called the break-in, huh?
Yeah, I guess that's what they called it, the break-in, and that's exactly because you're going along and you ask Yoko Ono, well, what did you think that That time you rode the F train into Queens.
Well, that sounds like she was on the Express.
Yeah, late at night too.
It was getting late.
You must have been going to Forest Hills for something.
That was a time when it was getting late. In baseball, it's still early, but that was getting late. And but I want to thank my San Francisco Giants in the cellar in the National League West, although they won last night. Here's our thing. By the way, thank you for Michael Cornfono. He is
Oregon State product.
A great hitter, and he's taken his place in the outfield with honors. Last night we beat
the Mets didn't keep him around. He's one of those guys that I don't know. I always liked him. I thought he was a solid player. But
the Mets probably wish they had J.D. Davis, right? He's starting for the Giants, and the guy they traded for, which was Darren Huff, has already been cut, and he's back with the Giants. So the Giants trade Darren Huff to the Mets. They get J.D. Davis. They start J.D. Davis. They get Huff back.
Baseball is pretty amazing sometimes.
Baseball's crazy. Anyway, Giants won last night 5-0 over the Dodgers. Home runs from Brandon Crawford, and who else hit one? Villar, the third baseman. And that's our story this year. If we don't hit multiple home runs in a game, we don't win. And if we don't win, we usually score no runs. So this is a return in some ways to our form from last year, where we made repeated efforts to try and win baseball games by scoring no runs. And I hope we get up. If we have a choice, I'll go with the home runs. Let's just go for the home runs because we know that's working for us. So give me the long ball with San Francisco. And if you don't get the long ball, expect to be disappointed. By the way, baseball has found out something that's been harmful to the home teams with regards to the shortening of the games. Games are about 30 minutes shorter this year because of the pitch clock.
They're selling less beer.
They're selling less beer. They're selling beer into the 8th inning, into the 9th inning, because they can't get enough beer out of their crowd.
And I didn't read that. I mean, that was the most logical thing I could think of.
It's true. They're selling a lot less beer, and they're selling beer later into the game. Usually they watch, how many cups have we sold? How much beer is in this crowd?
7th inning, it's in most places. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things. I remember we went to a doubleheader last year at Safeco, whatever they're calling it this week, T-Mobile Park, and there was a couple of oddities in the game. One of them was the catcher pitched in the 7th inning of the first game and got the win. And then he caught in the next game of the doubleheader. And as far as anybody could see, it was the first time in baseball history that a catcher had been credited with a win and then caught the next game. Go figure.
Could you get a beer during that game?
And the other thing is that, yes, you could in fact buy a beer. I remember taking a picture of the scoreboard. It was the 9th inning or something, or 8th inning, and the beer guy was standing there. And I was like, you'll never see this again.
Beer, anybody? Certainly, we're at a baseball game. Somebody must want a beer. I have some beer. Who wants me?
Yeah, this guy's out there selling beers. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. It was a doubleheader. You didn't have, it was a true doubleheader. You sat there for a half hour between the games, and then they played the second game. I couldn't remember the last time I saw a true doubleheader. And pretty amazing.
I don't know what selling beer into the 8th inning is going to do for rivalry games, because I've been to Giant games, have had some rivalries back in the day of Candlestick Park where they cut off the beer sales in the 3rd inning. That's it. We know what you've had, and believe me, you've had enough. That's it. We're not selling any more beer.
Those Harry M. Stevens cups to know exactly what the hell is going on.
We know how much beer we sold, and we appreciate it, but no more.
And
No
the
more for
beer to
you
hot dog
guys.
ratio is not doing too well here.
Let's sell some more hot dogs,
Let's start eating
please.
some hot dogs to settle your stomachs. Or matter of fact, don't even worry about the hot dogs. Just eat the buns.
That's it. That's all you need to do.
Put a little mustard in the bun. Let's see. The Mets are home against San Diego, and I think they've been actually been doing okay. The one that gets me is the Devil Rays,
Oh my
who
God,
are now
undefeated.
11-0.
Yep. And they're a happy team.
I guess they didn't need Joe Madden down there, huh?
No, they didn't. They managed, but just get us the third base coach. He can sit in the lineup. Come on, let's go. Let's
Yeah,
play.
good teams manage themselves, right?
In some cases, yeah, actually. I think the hardest job for a talented manager is to manage the bullpen so that there's somebody down there when you need them. I don't mean warming up. I mean, period. So who do we got down there today? Who's fresh? Who can we call upon?
Yeah, it's the Mariners are not doing too well. They've had
Back
some
to their old
they've
tricks.
struggled.
They're back to their old tricks.
Yeah, they've struggled. They beat the Cubs the other day, but then they lost last night. I mean, the Mets are 500. The Giants are a game under 500, even though they're you know just above Colorado. You can't read much into these numbers unless you're 0-14 or something like that, or 0-11. I mean, the Pirates are 7-4 right now and are actually close to the top of the league in run differential, I think. Oh no, maybe not. Maybe no. Actually, it's Milwaukee that's close to the top of the.
You know who's having a good year and could be trouble is the Orioles.
Well, they had a pretty good year last year. Actually, didn't they win?
Hmm.
I think they won 80 games last year, didn't they? 85 games, something like that.
And I can see the smoke rising up from Boog Powell's barbecue there on Utah Street in right field, and sure would tasty. Can you run down there and get me one, Vin? Are you within reaching distance of Utah Street?
That's EUTAW, right? Utah.
Yes, yes. Who the hell?
I'm looking on the damn map for Utah, UTAH, and no. It's EUTAW. What?
Yeah, Utah. That's what just
Utah.
it's spelled the way it sounds. No, it's not.
You guys do things funny here in Baltimore. I mean, you got great crab cakes, but wow,
But
do you
wow,
guys
Utah
do
Street.
things funny? You do them a little differently than most.
They should call that Boog Street anyway, instead of Utah Street.
Well, isn't Babe Ruth's museum on that street too? His house? They could have called it Babe Ruth Avenue or something like that.
That I don't know. It could be. He was
Yeah,
born in.
I think his house is on the house he was born in. It's the Babe Ruth Museum that's there. I think it's actually on Utah Street.
That's convenient.
Yeah, it was because I remember it was right down the block from the ballpark. It was, and at Utah Street actually doesn't run all the way through. It becomes a pedestrian plaza from
Yeah,
a couple of blocks from Camden Yard down to Camden Yards. It's like I don't know if there's a bus station, a train station, or what there is there, but there's something. And then you walk down Utah to the outfield gate at the ballpark and walk past that warehouse. Still one of the. I mean, it's no longer the best looking ballpark in the major leagues, but it's still that warehouse
yeah.
is unmistakable. It's
Yeah.
really when they designed that, when they said, it'd be a smarter thing to leave this building up than to tear it down. What are
It's
we
a
going to do
plus
with
for
all the bricks anyway?
yeah, right.
Where are we going to put them? It was a smart thing I still go with Pittsburgh as the best looking ballpark. It's just so the view from from sitting in the stands there. You got the river, you got you just have everything. The city, it's a beautiful skyline. Um, but I think probably Camden comes in second, or maybe San Diego comes in second because they kind of combined the best of Baltimore with the warehouse that sticks out into the outfield
Mhm.
with the city, which is you can see part of from
Downtown.
downtown from the ballpark. So they kind of figured out a way to get all of it in, and
Does that have a fence, or do they have the line on the wall in San Diego? I can't recall.
I can't recall. I don't remember what they have. I
'Cause I
think
know they have that line on the wall in Houston, which drives me crazy because they have a big hitting team and they don't have an outfield fence. They just have a wall and they drew a line on
right.
it. And I'm going out of my mind every time I see it because it tells me that the guy who designed that ballpark had never played baseball, wasn't interested in the game, had his own ideas about how the place should look, and then they bought it. They said, "Look, we need a fence because we hit the ball over the fence, not over the line, not up on the wall. It
Right,
has to go
right.
over the fence."
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's even I'm trying to think of. It used to be like that in the schoolyard. You used to draw a line on the
Yeah.
fence, and if you hit the ball above the line, because nobody could get it up over the fence, it was never going to go over the fence because the fence was 25 feet high, so it was never going to go over the fence. But so you drew a line on the fence and spray painted it across, and that's what if it hit over that line, it was a home run. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember now. Now, Cincinnati, no, Houston, I should say, had that took that thing from Crosley Field
Of the
where they
slope.
had the incline in the outfield and the flagpole in the middle of the outfield.
Yep. Crosley Field.
Yeah, they had Crossley Field had when you went back before you got to the wall, like 10 feet before the wall, they had a an incline that went up, it had grass on it and everything, and then in the middle of that incline was the flagpole with the base. So you could be running for a fly ball and running for a fly ball, and all of a sudden, boom, you hit the flagpole.
And that would be something you would notice.
Yeah, 10 times out of 10, when you hit the flagpole at that speed, it changes your perspective on the ball.
I don't, having never stood on that ground, I don't know what it was like, but I always thought that the outfielder was in danger of injury or a broken leg or a weird hip from running full speed and hitting the incline. If you hit it at the wrong angle, that's a mess.
I think a couple of guys hurt themselves like that, where they were running full speed and all of a sudden they're going up an incline. I don't know
Yeah.
how the old players, I guess they just, they were so happy to be playing that I'm making $300 a week. I don't care if you put a wall with spikes on it out there.
I'm not going to complain about the outfield too much.
Yeah, if I complain, I'll be back down playing in Louisville or something like that,
Ogden.
and riding a bus.
I'll be back in Utah with a U.
Yeah, Utah with a U, not Utah with an E. If I'm Utah with an E, I'm okay. Utah with a U, I'm not so okay. Um, yeah, but they fixed it since then. They took the flagpole out of there and they flattened out the incline. So I don't know. I don't even know. They may have even put a fence there in Houston. They still got the train that goes along the track. I don't even know what the
Yeah.
name of the ballpark is anymore. They've changed it
Cheaters
3 or
Field.
4 times. Yeah, it should be Cheaters Stadium, right? Um, Pittsburgh came up with a solution to uh, the whole controversy going on there because they took Heinz Field, which was a perfect name
For
for
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, and they changed it into Acrisure Stadium.
Oh my goodness. What is an Acrisure?
I think it's an insurance company, but I'm not sure.
We cannot be Acrisure.
We cannot be accurate sure about that, or accurate or sure. Um, but the Roonies, in their infinite wisdom, figured out, and you'll probably now see this in many other ballparks, that they've taken a page out of the college books. And so they've named the field in the stadium
Oh yeah, separate name.
Heinz Field at Acrisure Stadium.
There you go. Heinz gets top billing.
And yeah, I don't. Yeah, well, nobody. Believe you me, there's still 50% of the Steeler fans still call it Three Rivers.
Sure they do.
We don't care that it's a new building. To us, it's Three Rivers.
That's where we're going. I can tell you where I'm going. I'm going to Three Rivers.
I went there with my grandfather. He went there with his grandfather. And I remember when the Steelers played at Pitt on the campus. At Pitt Stadium.
With those funky uniforms with the striped legs.
Yeah. The things that they look like the Three Stooges.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard.
Oh man! All right, Mikey. Well, listen. It is.
It was a wacky, wonderful Wednesday.
We've given an hour and a half of ourselves today, which is, people complain. Well, how come we don't get on a 10:10? Well, sometimes we get on a 10:15, but we go until we run out of gas. Usually,
we go until Yoko sings, and then we have to leave.
Poor Yoko. I mean, I don't know who I feel worse for: Yoko embarrassing herself, or these poor kids.
She's a girl who likes her vowels. You can always count on a good vowel from Yoko. Not so much on the consonant. She's not kicking. She's ah.
And there's some woman who's standing off to the side in this clip, and you can find it. Just Google "voice piece for soprano and wish tree" by Yoko Ono.
Like you would normally.
Yeah, like you would normally. At about 1 minute and 28 seconds into this 3 minutes and 25 seconds of insanity, there's a woman standing in the background, and she is doubled over.
In laughter?
She's either doubled over in laughter or she's about to puke.
Sometimes
laughter, though.
Sometimes a gas pain can take you at a time when you're not ready for it. And there's
maybe that's Yoko, though. Maybe she had gas pains, and that's what's going on here.
There you have it. That's what it sounds like. Someone's in pain, but it sounds like it's a duck-billed platypus, not necessarily Yoko.
You got to give her credit, man. I don't know why, but you got to give you got to give her.
And that's where we'll leave you, friends. We started with stevedores who don't unload the boats, to Yoko Ono, who may or may not be actually singing. And so we'll leave that to you. I put that to you, and I leave it to you.
Yes, that's an amazing thing. All right, I will catch up with you Friday morning if the Lord's willing. The creek don't rise. We will have a Fractious Friday. Who knows?
Who knows what will befall our nation by the time we're on the air next?
Well, I say if we send Yoko to Congress, maybe she could do that in front of all those old guys.
I want her to testify before Jim Jordan's congressional committee, and I want her to get it all out. Start at the top, tell the whole story, get it all out. Let America hear what Yoko has always wanted to say to Jim Jordan.
Is Liz Cheney going to ride in on a horse here somewhere and save the Republican Party, or is it just too far gone?
It's so far gone that you can't describe only the Republicans would think of an idea to take women's rights to reproduce away from them and then say that they're going to send their representatives to other states to arrest doctors there. to prevent people from traveling across state lines, to stop the function of human freedom in its entirety. And can you imagine coming to New York? Jay Inslee just told the people from Idaho, love you guys, we're neighbors, we'll always be friends, but under no circumstances must you think that you can come to the state of Washington and arrest our doctors. We will protect them.
Yeah, you come here to touch our doctors, and we're gonna send the National Guard over to Idaho.
He reminded them that they've refused to treat their people during the COVID days. They took steps to prevent COVID from being controlled. And when the hospitals went crazy, Washington State treated their patients, gave them what they wanted, and made no questions asked.
You couldn't get a hospital bed in Spokane because
it was full of Idahos.
Because the Idaho people were rushing over the state line to get treated. Once they got sick, they wouldn't get the vaccine. They were proud of it.
No, they wouldn't get the vaccine. They just wanted treatment.
You know, maybe we're putting the walls up in the wrong places, Mikey. Maybe we should put walls up between the states.
Well, Republicans don't want women traveling from state to state because what control is that? I mean, a woman can just get in her car and drive from Idaho to Washington. That can't be right. That's not what America's all about. There's got to be somebody at the border. Somebody's got to stop them at the border.
Well, they have this movement that's going on. I mean, it's been around for years, but I guess the Idaho state legislature has now voted to explore the annexation of several counties in eastern Oregon.
I will say some of their highfalutin ideas are comical. They are so pitiful.
Why don't they just put up the swastika and call it Little Germany and just have at it? Just listen, you want to be Little Germany? Go ahead and be Little Germany, but you will never, ever, 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 ever get back into the United States. We won't trade with you. We won't let our vehicles drive across your borders. We'll go around your state. We'll do nothing.
We won't let hard currency go into Idaho.
Right. We won't let money go in there. If you are on this side of the border and you own property there, you'll forfeit it.
Can't be helped.
And just for craps and giggles, Justin Trudeau says that you can't go north anymore either.
Sorry,
you're unfriendly territory. So
we have seen your ways and we reject them. Yeah, stay right where you are, there, baby. You're gonna love it there.
Eat your crappy potatoes.
Come to Idaho. We're Little Germany, and we have professional winters.
Yeah, and suck down your fish because that's all you're going to get to eat. Because we're taking back. As a matter of fact, we're coming next week, and we're going to rip the pipes out that we put in because we could use the copper.
Turn it into cash.
Yeah, we got a junkyard that'll take all of that copper that we put in pipes. Nothing. You don't get anything from the United States. You want to find out what it is to live on your own? All right, you go ahead and be white. You could be as white as South Africa.
That's a good idea, Ben. But that's the vindictive nature of someone who's seen the solution been ignored for years. It's festered. It's gotten worse. No one's ever checked these people. No one's ever taught them about the law. No one's ever taught them about the Constitution. No one's ever taught them about the individual rights that citizens can expect and are guaranteed. It's their job to make life miserable, to make life a suffering, to make life difficult, to make people hate one another, to make people full of misgivings and resentments. This is all they're good for.
It really seems that way. I mean, it really seems that there's just an underlying current of mistrust and dislike. And I mean, I go over to Idaho a bunch of times a year. A friend of mine has a cabin over there. A couple of friends have cabins over there. And I got to be honest with you, man, it's like a weird feeling over there. It just doesn't feel like you're in America. It just has a really strange, bizarre feeling to it. Yeah, it's definitely a place where you will walk the way you are told.
Hey, you can feel that way in Wenatchee in certain situations.
No, I guess you can feel that way anywhere, but I don't know. Idaho seems to be able to bottle it and export it.
They're serious about it.
They're serious about it. All right. We will be serious about being back here on Wednesday. Mikey, I can't stress it enough, man, in these days that we go through. Peace, love, Manischewitz, baby.
Good luck in getting Manischewitz in Idaho, but we know where to buy it. What a wine.